Ding 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 ding.
I don't know if we're live or not.
Are we live?
I think
Are we
so.
live?
Yeah.
Are we live?
All right. Well, let's just roll the intro.
Are we
I think we're
live?
live.
I'm live.
Welcome to the next stop on your journey from paycheck to pension. If you're ready to take your finances to the next level, you're in the right place. It's time to take control of your future, starting now, and we're doing it live. Hi, we're the Stidhams, and our goal is to help you get self-directed. It's the tax-free income that will shape your legacy. It's wealth, time, and the freedom you deserve. What you're about to learn will enable you to make confident and strategic moves. It means gaining complete control to invest in what you want when you want. We've helped thousands of people just like you. And if they can do it, you can too. So we hope you're ready, because it's about time that your money started working for you. And we're so excited that you chose us to show you how.
Starting right now. Still muted?
No, we're not muted. Welcome. We're still trying to figure out some of these new things. We're using a new program. We got new buttons. We've got a new space. So welcome to our new space.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that said that, hey, you guys are married, but you stream from different spaces, and that's kind of weird. And it's really just because we had different offices, and that was what was more convenient. We didn't really have a place for us to be together in the stream, right?
It was so hard to just get me to go live at all. Like, it was just wherever we are, whatever we can do. We tried phone, we tried TikTok. Like, it was just it's such a difficult transition to get me on board with this process in general. So it was, you comfortable in your office? Okay, fine. We'll go live from there. We don't have to be in the same spot. We like as long as you're comfortable doing it, let's just do it. And I think a lot of this was related to that. And so here we are.
Here we are, and we're pretty excited for what we've done and what we can do now in this space. And so that's exciting all on its own. But let's get into what we're talking about tonight. Tonight, we're diving into a devastating but important lesson.
Yeah.
We're talking about how bad financial advice cost one of our clients $1 million in lost potential. Just imagine paying into a life insurance policy for years, thinking that you're building something for your future, only to have it completely wiped away because someone misunderstood the strategy. They just didn't know what they didn't know. Worse yet, if you didn't even realize the long-term consequences until it was too late, then what? And that's exactly what happened to a client when they followed advice to liquidate their life insurance policy. It's what seemed like a $20,000 mistake at the time, but it actually turned out to be $1 million loss. And we're going to talk about it. In this session, we're going to break down why this is so common, how you can avoid this fate, and how to truly understand your policies, and how to make sure you don't fall victim to bad or uneducated advice. So if you're serious about becoming self-directed and taking control of your financial future, this is a conversation you won't want to miss.
See, normally this is hey, there's this example of, you know what? This gentleman came and talked to me, and he had this objective that he was trying to hit, this goal, this objective that he was trying to accomplish. And we showed him how to eliminate $30,000 in debt in 40 minutes or something something. Usually it's a cool story, and it helps engage others into, you know what, maybe I can do that too. But this is one of those cautionary tales. This is one of those, you know what are the things that we can actually do or put in place so that we don't end up like this? Because I believe there are a lot of people that are experiencing what we're going to talk through today. I don't think this gentleman is alone. I don't think it's abnormal. I think, what we're walking through, there's some pieces here that will resonate with a lot of people, I believe.
I get really angry when I hear stories like this. And so it's really difficult for me to just not be angry talking about this stuff. I'm going to try to not get angry. But that doesn't mean that there aren't going to be people who are going to feel the same way. And these types of stories particularly are avoidable. they're just unnecessary consequences for people to realize. It's unfortunate when these types of things happen, but this is why we really, really can't stress enough how important it is to become completely self-directed, which means you're making confident and educated decisions and you understand what it is that you are doing. You understand where your North Star is. You understand how to calibrate your compass. You understand where you're going. It doesn't matter if anybody else doesn't understand that, because you understand your strategy. You understand the impact and the consequences of taking a detour that somebody else prefers for you.
At the root, getting self-directed is just about control. Who is currently in control of the path that you're wanting to walk down today? And is there an opportunity for you to gain more control, have more say over what it is you're wanting to accomplish and by when, versus putting your fate in the hands of someone who may not have the same sense of urgency as you, who may not even understand what your goals and objectives are.
Yeah.
But that for somehow you've given them full autonomy to say yes or no to what your future is going to look like.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about it. We're going to spill the tea on everything that happened to this person and why it happened. This is more common than you think. And by the end of the stream, you'll know how to avoid it for yourself. So that's the important part. We're loving this feedback. Let me see if we know how to pull up comments.
Let's see here. Who's your name?
How do we do this?
Can we move your name out of the way?
Oh, no. Okay, wait. There we go.
What's up, Peaky?
Hey! We got the fam in the chat, and that's what's important. Thank you, Veronica. We really appreciate it. We are really loving this space too, and it's better for us as well. We just had taken a really long time to get here, thinking like this part wasn't necessarily important, right? But now we see like what we were missing this whole time by just having like a collaborative space too, right? Yeah.
And we're still learning it too, right? I mean, I don't think we're done. I think this is what we have right now is awesome, but there's an opportunity to also, when we do I'll call it, what do you call them? Full videos. What is it?
Yeah. Like pre-recorded.
Yeah. Pre-recorded videos, having a space for that. And I actually have a real office now. So like there's all sorts of great improvements here, but we're still learning the space as well. So thank you guys.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that feedback. And, we're excited for what's to come out of this too. We're trying not to hit mics. Like the whole setup is completely different for us. So if we bang around and mess up this time, we just ask for a little grace.
So normally I'm playing with like a hairpin or pins, or like I'm down here because I'm fidgeting, right? Like you see me dancing because I've got this energy that I'm trying to get out. And so me not having something to, put my hands to work is kind of bothering me. So we'll figure that part out too. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Antonio. Really appreciate that. Antonio says, look at this. What up, fam? Look at this beautiful couple, and I'm loving this space. We're loving it too. What we're not loving though is what's happening out here in these streets. And that's what we're talking about today is we want everyone to be loving the results that they're getting, the future, and the confidence that they have by being educated and feeling and making confident decisions about your future. Yeah. So that's what we're going to get into. And without further ado, you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, everybody can hear you.
Awesome. So here's an interesting...
There you go.
So I'm no longer muted now?
Yeah, now you're good.
Okay, awesome. So here's the thing about today. This is supposed to be an exciting moment in this gentleman's policy. Because here's what happened. If you guys know anything about this channel, I talk a lot about a leveraged IUL. And we've walked through a lot of how a leveraged IUL is structured. Meaning, year 1 functions as normal. Year 2 functions as normal. But year 3, something special happens. Year 3, there's this leverage that kicks in. There's this leverage that kicks into your policy that allows it to start exponentially growing a little bit better, if not a whole lot better than what traditional cash value life insurance products would do. And so I was just making my normal entrance into the third year call to a gentleman who had received a policy from me about 2.5 years ago. And when I get on the call, he goes, "Hey, I liquidated my policy." Wait a minute, you did what? Let's back up here. You're at a great point in your policy where, you know what, I'm about to share with you the amount of leverage that you're able to put in and add as premium and start to exponentially grow things so that you can hit the goals that we had identified a long time ago as to what they were. And come to find out, he had talked to his financial advisor, and his financial advisor came up with the bright idea that, you know what, based off the structure of your policy, based off the, I'll call it inefficient structure of your policy, that you might want to get out of that thing because that thing is not going to do what you think it's going to do. So, okay. And so moral of the story is he had shared with me that, hey, based off the structure of the policy, based off what my financial advisor walked me through and showed me within the illustration that I had provided to him, because he shared a copy of his illustration with his financial advisor. And this is not unusual, because I look at hundreds of illustrations from people who share theirs with me. So I get it. And based off what he reviewed, it was, you know what? The money that I'm putting in this policy is all going towards the life insurance company. I'm not getting anything out of this deal. As a matter of fact, there comes a point in time in this policy where by the time I hit around 70, what I'm putting in is all going towards the cost of insurance. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I said, you know, I started going down the path of like, what else? Like, what are the other pieces here? And we'll dig into those details, but I just wanted to kind of highlight some things. One, his financial advisor said, hey, you know what you need to do? You need to liquidate this policy. And let's think about this. Financial advisors. What do financial advisors offer? What are they capable of selling? In most cases, are financial advisors able to sell life insurance-based products? It's possible, but in most cases, no. And in addition, what are they allowed to sell? They're only allowed to sell what it is they have to offer. So if you go to a financial advisor who works for Vanguard, what can that financial advisor offer you? That financial advisor can offer you the mutual fund, stocks, and bonds that Vanguard is allowed to provide. And in addition, what's his job? In most cases, the financial advisor's job is to sell you the products that they have. Now, there are some great financial advisors out there. I've worked with several of them, still work with them to this day. So I understand that these might be what they do, but they also have, in most cases, a fiduciary responsibility, and we'll get into that as well. But here's what happened to him, just to kind of set the stage for this gentleman. 40 years of age, he started his policy when he was 40 years of age. He's contributing $1,500 a month, which is $18,000 a year. He is approaching year 3, and as I mentioned, in this strategy, when you're approaching year 3, something special happens. When you're approaching year 3, that's where we have to increase the space inside your policy so that you can start exponentially growing things. And ultimately, the impact of what he did, he had about $20,000 of cash value that was accumulated, actually more than that. And he decided to liquidate his policy, which caused a $15,000 surrender charge. So out of that $20,000 that was accessible, $15,000 of it went back to the life insurance company, which means he received a check for $5,000. And in the short term, it looks like he spent, 18 and 18 is 36. He spent 36 grand over 2 years. He had cash value of about 20. He gave up that 20,000 and walked away with 5. So in the short term, it looks like this is the impact. And that's what he was calling, well, when I called him, that's what he was sharing with me. He was like, hey, yeah, I know I took a hit, but it was better I get out now versus what could happen. And I said, well, let's have a discussion. Are you open to kind of better understanding what this could have looked like? Are you interested in better understanding how the decision that was made was the incorrect one and how we could have gone about addressing this differently? And he was open to it. And so what I want to kind of walk through with you today is what I was able to accomplish with him. And that was, what did he actually lose, though, in this process? Meaning, yes, he walked away with 5, and there's a difference between the 20,000 in cash value and the 5 that he walked away with. But what was the true impact? Well, at year 2, at the end of year 2, start of year 3, he had accumulated about a little over $500,000 in total death benefit. That total death benefit is both the life insurance that he had purchased and the cash value that was accumulated. So in total, at the end of year 2, he had given up about $500,000 in death benefit, meaning if something were to happen to him, his beneficiaries, his family, is missing over $500,000 of death benefit as a result of this, I'll call it stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. Because in essence, that's what happened here. And in addition, you could tell it when we were talking, his confidence was shaken. He didn't know who to believe. Like he had no idea, like he had walked through this, had this conversation with his financial advisor and everything seemed like it made sense. And he wasn't sure if he was going to hear from me anymore. So it was like, you know what? I need to take action. I need to get self-directed. I need to be more in control of this process. And based off what I've just learned from my financial advisor, these are the actions that I need to take. So his entire confidence around this process and these steps were shaken. And in addition, if we go back to the original goal was about supplemental income. The original goal was about generating wealth. Well, what impacts your ability to generate wealth or generate a supplemental income? Well, it all depends on your time horizon and the amount of time it takes to be able to generate that income. So in this process, he's lost the compound cycle. Leverage. Last week we talked a lot about how to and where to identify your leverage. So he lost leverage, his ability to leverage this vehicle to do other things. And then, this video starts out talking about $1 million loss. But I'll walk you through how it's actually probably double that, if not $2.5 million that was actually lost. But I'll walk through that information.
Okay,
Jumping in. Let me go back.
Real quick.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm trying really hard to not be just super angry about this, but is anybody else just thinking like the math doesn't math? Why would anybody tell somebody to do this when at minimum it is a significant loss? Like you already invested. Why would somebody tell you, like, is that not the question on everybody's mind? If you don't mind, chime in the chat. Are we not wondering why somebody would do this and how they just didn't do the math? Like, it seems simple, right? Just do the math. Even the surface math, right? If you can't do the long math, even just the surface math on this doesn't even make sense. So off the jump, this is where I start to get angry because it's clear that the person that he spoke with, he has a relationship with, and that the relationship was where the influence was coming from.
Very much so.
And where his confidence could be shaken. He had confidence in what he was doing, but then somebody else was like, no, I'm telling you what to do. And because I've known you longer.
Right. Could have been dad.
Right.
Right.
Could have been your Uncle Charlie.
Right.
Uncle George, Auntie Georgina, whoever it is. They have a relationship that then held some weight. So that's the part that I feel like we have such a hard time disconnecting from that programming of people in our lives and how their ignorance can influence us and prevent us from making these changes. Okay, bye.
Well, and here's the answer to the test, though. The answer to the test is this should not be a this or that conversation. The big miss here is not like, did the financial advisor do the right thing in questioning the performance of the policy? Yes. Did the financial advisor do the right thing in identifying some areas of opportunity? Yes. Now let's go get those answers, because it's not a this or it's not a don't do this, only do that, because that tells me you're trying to sell me something. That's what that tells me.
This is the only way.
Right. The only way to accomplish this goal is if you do these things.
Right.
Because this thing over here is not what you should be doing.
Right.
Red flag. So, okay.
All right.
So there's a few things that we're going to cover. We're going to break down the dangers of relying on one thing, the dangers of relying on that traditional financial advice, because traditional financial advice is what's gotten this country in the position that it's in. What do I mean? Well, what's the average retirement nest egg? Less than $200,000 a year. What's the average retirement age? It's actually somewhere around 74, 75. So people are working longer because they don't have the money they need to be able to stay retired. And also what's happening is individuals are retiring, learning that, hey, this nest egg that I've spent the last 35, 45 years building is not sufficient. So they end up going back to work. So traditional retirement planning and traditional retirement accounts are a large reason as to why we are where we are. You jumping in? Oh, okay. And why becoming self-directed is key. And again, this is just about understanding where your leverage is located, educating yourself on how to be more participative, how to participate in this process, meaning have more control and not be conditioned to or subjected to someone else's beliefs, and how to make sure every decision you make gets you closer to the true goal. Because it's not a one size fits all. It's not the same for everyone. So there's a few questions that we want to answer as we walk through all of this information. It's, what did his financial advisor leave out as he was kind of walking through his policy? And in addition, why? Like, why would he do that? And I think this is also probably a good time to kind of poll or take a survey of those who are watching. And that is, from your perspective, from I'll call it a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being not at all, and 5 being absolutely. What's your expectation of whether or not your financial advisor should or shouldn't be a subject matter expert? What is your expectation around whether or not your financial advisor should know everything about your financial profile? How would you rate that? Meaning 1 being, you know what, they shouldn't know anything, or 2, or somewhere in the middle, that 3 somewhere in the middle, or 5 being they should know everything about my financial profile in order to help me hit my goal. What's your expectation? Because I think what today is going to speak to as well is we give these people a lot of power. We give these institutions a lot of power, a lot of agency over us. And my question is, should we? All right, so we're going to cover that. And what does, going back to the slide, sweetheart, and what does his illustration actually show? So when you dig into the details of the illustration, what is actually seen inside of his illustration that would have prompted that financial advisor to say, you know what, maybe this isn't something that you should be doing, or this illustration is designed incorrectly. So we're going to step through the illustration and kind of understand what those things are. Is it designed properly? We talk a lot about properly designed cash value life insurance products on this channel. And then fees. There's always a fee discussion. I love having fee discussions, but here's my argument. Here's my issue with the fee discussion. Normally, we're talking about fees related to products that are not traditional retirement accounts. There is never a discussion around what is the fee structure inside my company's 403B or government 457 plan, or my IRA, my 401k, my TSP. What is that fee structure? We should have an apples to apples discussion around the fee structure inside of all of these products that we are buying from these institutions. So we're going to cover that as well. But I want to start here. And this is pretty busy. I will drill into it and highlight some items, but I just want to kind of leave it blown out for a little bit. Again, the gentleman is 40 years of age. I'll drill in. This is not a preferred plus non-tobacco client. He's standard tobacco. So he's a smoker, which means, what does that mean? Preferred plus non-tobacco compared to standard tobacco. All that means is his cost of insurance might look different. It may look different because he's rated different. That's all. And he's, again, as I mentioned, he's putting in $1,500 a month, which is $1,800 a year. And the reason I'm blowing this up is because there's 3 buckets in this document. There's a guaranteed bucket, alternate bucket, and a non-guaranteed bucket. We are going to focus our attention on the non-guaranteed bucket. So this advisor that was looking at his illustration also focused his attention on the non-guaranteed bucket. So it told me that the financial advisor does know how to read illustrations, because a lot of people don't. But let's just highlight why. This guaranteed section is saying, if I contribute $18,000 a year, this is what I can anticipate the growth on my dollar if there was no growth. And that's ultimately saying if the market crashed every year for the rest of my life, this would be the performance. Well, this isn't realistic. The alternate section is saying, hey, what if the market crashed every other year? Well, the likelihood of the market crashing every other year is not realistic. So getting rid of this, we focus on this section because it's as close to actual as possible. Now, it's illustrated at a rate of 6.25%. What's actual? Well, actual is actually somewhere around 6.87% on average. So it's about under-promising, but this section is as close to actual as we can get. So to drill in a little bit, I want to move this over, and I'll get a little bit closer in just a minute. All right. So I want to highlight a few things. Oh, it's not lined up, is it? There we go. I want to highlight a few things. One, again, he started this policy when he was 40 years of age, turning 41, and putting in $18,000 a year. What I usually ask, the question that I usually ask as it relates to whether or not a policy is structured properly or not, it always starts with, when do I break even? What's the break-even point inside of your policy? Because the break-even point inside of your policy usually tells me whether or not this policy is structured correctly. So let's start there. If I'm putting in $18,000, at what point do I have $18,000 working for me? So notice, in year one, I put in $18,000. I've got about 14.9, almost 15 grand. So there's about a $3,000 difference. That difference, those are the fees. So I do not break even in year one. Well, I've already done the math. If you multiply 18,000 by, I believe it's 8, you end up breaking even here, if I'm not mistaken. So in year 8. In year 8, he ends up breaking even in his policy, ultimately meaning he's put in less than what his policy is making at year 8. So the break even in this specific policy, the break even point is year 8. Is that good or bad? Well, if you, again, spend any time on this channel, we talk about when you start hitting that year 7, 8, 9, 10, that policy is not very well designed. So if I'm his financial advisor and I'm following the same steps that I just mentioned, when does he break even? A flag for me is saying, hey, he doesn't break even in this policy until year 8. Why is that? And that's the right question. The question is why, not the question is something is wrong. Not, hey, the question is, it's not your policy has been designed incorrectly and so therefore you need to liquidate everything in this policy and get your money back. That's not the response. The question that should be asked is why? Why do I not break even before year 8? If this is supposed to be a great and wonderful process, why? And it's a really easy answer as to why. And it was at the request of the client. That's where you have to come here. Notice this section. This is a different page inside the illustration. When we talk about the structure of a properly designed IUL, we say it needs to be max funded. Max funded saying we need to be purchasing the least amount of life insurance for the amount that we're putting in. Notice, all I'm saying is the MEC limit needs to be right around the same amount that's being contributed. Well, if I'm contributing 18,000, notice the guideline max is 30,000. Actually 30,800. So put in 18, the guideline max is 30,800. Something's wrong. Again, put in 18, the guideline max is 30,800. Why such a drastic difference? Well, that was intentional because the gentleman who wanted this policy said, hey, I'm anticipating getting a bonus this year, but I don't want to be obligated to have to put in a lump sum into this policy. So can we build room into this policy? If I'm putting in $18,000 a year and I know max funded would mean my MEC limit would be right around 18,000, can we create some room in this policy so that I can add additional dollars throughout the year? I don't want to be forced to do it. I want the room to be able to do it. Absolutely, I can do that. And here's the beauty of that action. Because we built in this room, what that ultimately means is we've built in the first jump. We've built in leverage in this policy. What do I mean by all of that? Well, now you have to go back to the strategy. What's the strategy? The strategy is in year 1, I'm going to contribute to this policy. Year 2, I'm going to contribute to this policy. At the start of year 3, everything I've contributed in year 1 gets added to year 3. That means $18,000 of leverage gets added to year 3 on top of my 18, which means if this is a max funded policy, this dollar amount will have to move. But guess what? Because we built in the space early into this policy, it doesn't have to move. So he doesn't have to qualify for anything. He automatically has room for leverage. Now, it won't be the same amount, but he has room for the leverage if he does not max fund his policy. So I'm going to pause there for a moment. Moral of the story is this policy is designed with additional room. And as a result, his break-even point, make this bigger. Therefore, his break-even point, instead of it being somewhere in this space, his break-even point ends up being year 8. That's why. But just to compare apples to apples, what would this look like if he had a properly designed, meaning a cash value life insurance product, same dollar amount, but it was max funded, meaning the guideline max was equal to what he's contributing. How would that be different? If this built-in room wasn't there, how would his policy be different? Where would his break-even point be? Well, instead of it being year 8, it actually breaks even year 7. So, if you've been on this channel, when I talk about where policies should or should break even, usually I say somewhere between years 4 through 6, that's a really well-designed policy. Remember, this is not a prefer plus non-tobacco. This is standard tobacco policy, so there's already additional fees. And so for a max funded policy to break even in year 6, that's pretty powerful. But here's the piece about all of that. None of that matters. Because in this strategy, there are some special things that happen within this strategy that I'll call it negates all of those challenges. And it starts at year 3. He was at the beginning of where all of those actions were about to take place that, again, the pieces that his financial advisor pointed out as being a problem in this document, it all goes away at year 3 when that leverage kicks in, which means he was headed into the space where the challenges that his advisor brought up will no longer exist. So how could he have addressed this differently? He could have addressed this differently by just having a conversation. Bring your advisor to the call. Have him load up his questions. And let's spend 45 minutes breaking down why. And what I want to do here, I'm going to break down the why in this strategy, but I want to jump to something real quick. I want to jump to the fees. Here's why. One of the biggest issues that he brought up was this one. It costs more in insurance at around age 70. What I'm contributing to this policy, it costs more in the cost of insurance than what I'm contributing. What he's saying is, if I'm putting in 18 grand a year, that 18 grand a year is going towards all cost of life insurance, meaning it's a fee. My money's not working for me anymore, and that's a problem. So let's address that. Back here. So, you know I love to talk about the fees. This is the fee page inside the illustration. Here's my other challenge. His financial advisor was able to see the fee page in his illustration. Question for those of you with a cash value life insurance product of any kind. Go grab your illustration and turn to the fees page. In most cases, the fees page does not exist. So in this case, his financial advisor was able to go to it. Here's what he said. He said, hey, this $18,000 that you're putting in every year, well, this cost of insurance, which is located right here, this cost of insurance continues to increase, which it does. Cost of insurance increases as we get older. So again, he's putting in 18 grand. This is the cost of insurance. Notice how this number increases as we move down the line. And his challenge was somewhere around the age of 70. Let's look at 70. You've put in $540,000. You put in $70,000 at age 70. What is the cost of insurance? $13,000. So he wasn't talking about 70. But let's go to 73. 73, I'll make it a little bit bigger. At 73, you've put in $18,000. What is that cost of insurance? $18.22. Notice, every dollar you've put in premium at age 73 is all going towards the cost of insurance. Red flag. the next step should be why? Why is this, and why should I be okay with it? Let's have a discussion about it. Because here's the piece that was missed. If we're talking about year 73, and if we're just looking at this document as it is, meaning this is the bare bones illustration.
Age 73, not year.
My bad. Age 73, age 73, we're putting in 18,000, and this is a bare bones policy, meaning no leverage. This is the original illustration from the start. There is no leverage included in this policy. Okay, I'm putting in 18,000 at age 73. These are my costs. The cost of insurance is more than what I'm contributing. Did anyone care to look at, well, how much cash value do I have? How much money? Oh, I guess I need the age. Make sure I get the right age. Yep. I'll do this. Did anyone care to identify how much cash value is available at that same time? Meaning, this is how much is working for you. And this is how much is available to you to use, leverage, take as income, whatever you want. Well, I've put in 18,000, assuming I'm still contributing till 73. I've put in 18,000. My cost of insurance is 18,000, but I've got $1.3 million available, leverageable, accessible to be able to use as income. Again, I've put in 18,000. My cost of insurance equals what I've put in. Fair argument. But I've got $1.3 million available to me. Why wasn't that a part of this discussion? Because who cares what I put in? Who cares that the cost of insurance is $18,000 if I've got $1.3 million in my pocket? Oh, and by the way, this is a life insurance policy. God forbid something happens to me. My beneficiaries, based off that $18,000 that I put in and that $18,000 in cost of insurance, my beneficiaries receive $1.8 million. And again, this is a bare bones policy. This is no leverage. So this is not indicative of what would be happening at that time. This is I'll call it a worst case scenario. This is not indicative of what the true performance would be. This is just a guideline or a placeholder to use. Go ahead, sweetheart.
Why don't you tell them, one, how, because Ty's asking a really great question. She says, I'm missing how we even know where break even is. And then why doesn't it show the strategy on here? So why can't you see what he would actually, like, why are these numbers different than what they would be if he was applying the strategy?
Perfect. So the second question, I'm going to share what that strategy looks like, and I'll break some of that down. So I'll say pause that one. But to the first question, how do you know? How do you know where you break even? So it is actually just a simple mathematical equation. So meaning it's adding up. Okay, if I put in 18,000 in year one, then I put in another 18,000 in year two, 18 plus 18 is 36. If I come over here to year two, I guess I can do it this way. There we go. If I come over here to year two, do I have 36,000 working for me? And the truth is, I do not. I only have 30,657. So as you continue adding these $18,000 up, then you come over here to this accumulation value column and you identify when do the numbers equal, or when does this number become larger than this number? And so let's just do the 10. So if I do 18,000 times 10, so 10 years, at the 10-year mark, that's 180,000. Notice, I would have put in 180,000, but the dollar amount that's working for me is 199. So again, just simple math. In 10 years, I have far more than I've put in. The question is, at what point do I break even? At what point is this number really close to equal? And it ends up being right at year 8. So that's how you find out. And again, it's identifying how much you've contributed and how much is actually working for you. That gives you that break-even point. And in most cases, when you're looking at poorly designed policies, they break even somewhere down here. Meaning you've contributed almost 15 years before you even break even. And you asked about the strategy. I think that's where I was headed next. Yep. What should the design look like? I think that's a great question. Well, as we discussed, this is a properly structured cash value life insurance product, Sometimes we call it a SCIA, secure compound interest account. But in truth, it is just an IUL that has a leverage component to it. That's it. You can get an IUL from anywhere. This IUL allows you to add a match, add additional leverage into the process. So what does that look like? Well, you're contributing your dollar, and then at some point, the life insurance company comes along and allows you to add leverage into that same bucket where your money is growing. So this is the strategy. And what happens is you have $2 amounts working for you. You have the money that you've contributed, and you have this dollar amount that you've leveraged. And that dollar amount that you've leveraged, there's a spread being created, meaning leverage implies borrow. So you're borrowing a dollar amount from the life insurance company, and that dollar amount is working alongside yours, but you did not borrow that dollar amount for free. You borrowed it at, let's say, I think this says, 4 to 5%. Well, as long as that borrowed dollar amount makes something above that 4 to 5%, again, somewhere around 6 to 9, you get to keep the difference between these two numbers. Because once you pay back the dollar amount that was owed, you get to keep the difference, and that difference now gets added to what you've contributed. So in essence, there's $2 amounts working for you. You make everything off, or that 6 to 9% off of the dollar amount you've contributed. You're making the same 6 to 9% off the leveraged dollar amount, but you have to pay back what you owed, and that arbitrage, that spread, you get to keep. And then that's how your money starts to compound higher, faster, more efficiently than what you would traditionally get in just a regular IUL.
Okay, but what about, because you're talking about the match, right? Match is not a foreign concept, especially to a financial advisor, right? You guys agree, right? So then you're talking about two different amounts that's working for you. And here's what's interesting. The majority of financial advisors would encourage people to leverage their employer-based retirement fund, whatever it is, right?
Put in up to the match, right? Put in at least put in, get the match, right?
Get the match because it's free money.
Exactly.
But why is that free money? Why do they do that match? It almost is the same thing, because you're actually, if they weren't giving you that match, they would have to pay you more.
Right.
It actually benefits them. They get to double dip in the benefit from giving the match. Nobody talks about that part. Okay, the other part. How much is it going to cost you? The cost of insurance goes up as you get older. Why didn't the financial advisor say, but also so did your taxes?
Exactly.
So does the tax penalty that you're going to pay. None of these things were brought up, and that's the point, is that they picked they were picking and choosing which points they were going to red flag, and which ones they weren't going to include at all. Like, this policy when he read it, it must not have had any cash value at all. It must not have had any benefit at all outside of insurance, right? So you're just paying through the nose just for insurance. Like, there's the thought that either he was completely uninformed on life insurance in general, or he specifically knew that he could sway him to take an action just simply because of what he believed was the best and rock him off of his boat.
And because I'm in this space a lot, I really try to do my best to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. Meaning, being a financial advisor, there is a certain level of fiduciary responsibility there. Yeah. So I have to believe this is being done in the best interest of my client. I have to believe that.
Well, my belief for that is already out the window.
I understand.
Okay.
And because I have to believe that, I just think there's a better way to have this discussion, meaning call it out. Circle it in red. But now let's have a discussion on why it is or isn't what you think it is.
Okay, but just the fact, just off principle, right? Off principle. If somebody is just completely avoiding talking about any benefit, they just ignoring columns, including the surrender column.
It's a red flag.
The impact that it would have to this person and the amount of money that they would have lost, they did lose. None of that was talked about. It was just, this is bad. These are all the reasons why it's bad. There's nothing good about this. And the best thing that you could do is liquidate this policy.
Right. Yeah. It's horrible. And that's where I go back to the better way is this isn't a this or that discussion. It's a this and that. It's a how do these things work together? Because again, he had some specific goals.
Yeah.
And I'll get to them, but one of those specific goals is I want to be able to retire early. Okay. Those of you with a financial advisor, please explain to me how your financial advisor, who provides you mutual funds, stocks, and bonds, usually through qualified plans, explain to me how your financial advisor can assist you in retiring early. And when I mean retire early, I mean before the age of 59 and a half.
And especially if they're going to act blind when they see other products that could benefit you.
Right.
Like
So, and the second question that I think was, why isn't this structure illustrated, right? Now, I think that was the other question, right? Why isn't this structure illustrated? Why is this just a bare bones illustration? Well, it's very simple. At least that answer is very simple as well. I can't illustrate something that has not happened. So this illustration isn't actual. What is this illustration based off? It's based off a rate of 6.3%, which is about 0.5% less than actual performance. Meaning the life insurance company feels pretty solid in saying, you know what, I believe that in real world conditions, your contributed amount will perform fairly well based off a 0.5% rate reduction based off actual performance. So I can't illustrate something that hasn't happened. So as this year ends, this number will become whatever the actual amount is, which means this document updates. In most cases, most people don't get a new illustration every year, but you could if you wanted it. And my point is, every year when the actual numbers hit, this document gets updated. Every year when the actual number hits, this document changes. So that's the key. I think I keep hitting it with my hand.
Oh, okay. I was like, why is it moving?
Yeah, I think it was me. So that's the reason why it can't be illustrated. So the piece I wanted to jump to is this. Again, it's about the actual design. Meaning, he was approaching year 3. This is year 3 in this. I can make it bigger. The largest. There we go. This is year 3, meaning he's put in 18,000. He's put in 18,000. The MEC limit in his policy is 30,000. It's intentional space. And here's the comparison to a properly designed, I'll call it max funded policy where the MEC limit is 18,000. So I want to walk through how the dollars move inside this product. So in year 1, again, inside of a policy where the room is 30,000, if you put in 18,000, there's a deficit of 12,000, meaning your policy is underfunded by $12,000. Okay? And again, that's intentional. This is what was asked to be done. Okay? You put in another 18,000 in year 2. Now the 12,000 that was underfunded last year gets added to the 12,000 of this year, which means now you're underfunded 24,000. Okay? So now we hit year 3. Year 3 is supposed to be this great and wonderful moment where we are now going to increase this MEC limit, jump the policy, in other words, so that we can add more leverage at this point. But guess what? We can't. Why can't we? Because there is a deficit of about $24,000 at the start of this year, which means the policy is underfunded by 24 grand. So we cannot jump the policy. But as I mentioned earlier, there's built-in space, there's built-in room, there's built-in leverageable space. Meaning, when he goes to put in this $18,000, there's room for an additional 12 grand because his MEC limit is 30. So what if we used 12,000 of the cash value that he's accumulated and put that in on top of the 18,000 that's already there? Meaning, we're going to max fund his policy using leverage. What's required to do that? Nothing. He just has to fill out a loan form and we move 12,000 of his accumulation value over here. It's brand new premium, which allows his policy to now be max funded for the year. So at year 3, instead of us having to do an exercise to be able to add more leverage into his policy, we just use a portion of his cash value to fill the gap. And we do it again at year 4. Well, when we do that, guess what happens? Because he's max funded his policy in year 3 and year 4 by using leverage that he already existed in his policy, he's now max funded for those 2 years. If you know anything about this strategy, in order for the leverage to kick in order for you to jump your policy has to be max funded for 2 years consecutively. And in this case, that's what happens here, which means now we can jump his policy. Now we can create more room. And how much room can be created? Well, if the MEC limit was 30,000, and the way the strategy works is you take everything from the year prior and add that in as brand new principal. Well, if we add the premium from the previous year to that MEC dollar amount, to that max funded dollar amount, to that guideline max, 18,000 plus 30,000, that's 48 grand. So we're going to increase his guideline max to 48 grand, which means we're going to add an additional leverageable amount of 30,000 on top of the 18 that he's put in. Now his policy is back in position as it normally would be. Well, let's compare that to a properly designed, max funded IUL with leverage. Had it kind of started out that way, meaning instead of the MEC limit being 30,000, what if it was just 18,007 cents or whatever that dollar amount would be? Well, he puts in the 18,000, he's underfunded by 0. Put in 18,000 in year 2, underfunded by 0. At year 3, what happens? Again, going back here. At year 3, what happens? Well, at year 3, the dollar amount, everything that you've contributed in year 1 gets added to year 3 as leverage, so now you have $2 amounts working for you. So that's all that's happening in this process. Put in 18,000 in year 1, 18,000 in year 2. Starting in year 3, we're going to leverage 18,000, which means the room in this policy has to be an increase from 18,000 to 36. And then every 2 years, we're going to jump his policy again. So in total, what does this look like between both policies? In his policy, he would have about 312,000 at the 10-year mark of leverage being added in his policy, even though he's put in 180 grand. So these are the $2 amounts working for him in his policy. In a regular IUL with leverage that was max funded out the gate, it's the same 180,000, but it's 360 of leverage on top. So it's the difference between these two numbers. So because of how his policy was structured intentionally, there's a difference of, what is that, about $48,000 in leverage. Is that bad? Does that impact his ability to be able to accomplish his goal? It doesn't impact any of that. And this is the piece that's missed because, again, it's not in his illustration, nor should it be. Go ahead, sweetheart.
Right. So Gabo saying, so the MEC of 48K is created because the extra room left prior years or by requesting more extra MEC room to the insurance company.
That's it. Because, life insurance people like to scream, you're going to MEC your policy. Well, that can only happen if it's allowed. So what we would do is, hey, we don't have the space in the policy to add more leverage, so we have to create the space. What does that mean in English? That means we have to qualify you for more room. That means we might have to go through an exam to create more space in your policy. That is what this strategy looks like. Go ahead, sweetheart.
And you know what's interesting? Any financial advisor would have their own strategy on how they diversify, on how they pivot, or the leverage that they use, depending on market conditions. They would have a similar strategy on how they would reduce risk and increase growth, right?
That's it.
But any life insurance agent might look at a portfolio and say, wow, I don't really get this. So that's why, one, I don't get it. So that's why it doesn't make sense. That's like, why? That doesn't make sense.
Right.
But the other part is the strategy that they have. They also can't forecast or promise something or put it in writing what somebody is going to have. One, if you ask any financial advisor, what's the income I'm going to be able to take with your strategy? They don't know. They can't give you a number because they have no idea.
They can't predict the market.
But in 5 years, in 10 years, they can't even tell you that the money that you put in will still be there.
Right.
Because you might have lost it all and had to get it all back.
Right.
That's the part that I don't think is very fair about all this, is that we should be on the same team. Everybody should be on the same team who are helping people achieve financial stability. Right? Because what we're talking about here for some people, the bare minimum is financial stability, not financial freedom, not getting rich, wealthy, whatever, generational wealth, like all of that is great. But the bare minimum, like floor level, financial stability. And if that ain't their job, what is, right? Is to at least maintain that part.
And I think you bring up a great point, because I just want to make sure that we highlighted the question, or we answered the questions that I said we would. What did this
Okay.
financial advisor leave out? I think we highlighted that. It was the ability to actually generate wealth and what his cash value is actually going to look like. Why would he do that? Why? Why would his financial advisor do that? I don't want to assume. I don't want to make assumptions about his financial advisor skill set. But here's what I know. I know a financial advisor can't offer you a product that they don't already have. Meaning they can't tell you to go across the street because you might be able to do better, because they will lose their license. So instead of this being an and discussion, it became an or discussion. And what did his illustration actually show, and what does it mean? His illustration actually showed that there was some intentional actions made within his policy, but when the leverage kicks in, it answers all of it. And is it designed properly, and how would you know? That's that break-even point. One is the break-even point, and two, when that leverage kicks in, how does the dynamic change? When that leverage is added, again, the 18,000 year one, 18,000 year two, 18,000 year three is 54 grand. When you add the leverage on top, whether it's 18,000 or 12, can we at least agree that you now have more than the 54,000 that you put in working for you? And then as a result, the amount of accumulation value is higher, which means when the leverage kicks in, your break-even point is actually year 3. Not year 6, not year 8. It is actually year 3. Why? Because of the leverage. That's what makes this process so powerful. And then the fees. We talked about the fees as well. The design of policies like this really do matter, because it can be designed for compounding fees. If the concern is how much you are going to pay in cost of insurance, that is a valid concern. The key is to structure this policy such that the fees in it are decreasing. We can't do anything about the cost of insurance, but what we can do is make sure that the expense charge isn't compounding. What we can do is make sure that the guy who sold you the policy isn't making more money off the policy than you. So that's where making sure those fees are decreasing. And again, I didn't go over the fees column. We just talked about the cost of insurance. But my point is, this policy is also designed with a decreasing fee structure. And that is the way you make sure that those types of things don't happen. And then the last one, how much was truly lost? We didn't cover this part yet. But how much money was actually lost as a result of the actions that were taken? Again, we talked about what happened initially. It was, hey, it cost me, I put in my $18,000 in year 1 and year 2. I had a certain amount of cash value available to me, and I liquidated that cash value so that I could at least get some money out of this process, because my financial advisor said I need to liquidate things. So, okay, I got my $5,000. Yeah, I know it cost me 20 grand to do it, or 15 grand to do it, but at least I got my $5,000 back. But what truly was impacted here? So let's kind of talk through that a little bit. And so for that, I wanted to project out what these different growth periods would look like inside of this product. So there's a few different ages I highlighted. Age 55, age 59, because again, the goal, what's his goal? His goal is being able to produce supplemental income so that he could focus on retiring early. So by age 55, again, started his policy at 40. By age 55, that's 15 years. And with a 15-year period, he would be able to retire early if he wanted to, or take supplemental income. What does it look like at age 59? Because that's the first point at which he would be able to take his qualified dollars. And then, okay, what does it look like at normal retirement age? So if he was to put in this $18,000 a year, by age 55, he would have contributed $270,000. By age 59, $342,000. By age 65, about $450,000. Leverage would have been added during that period as well. Well, the leverage dollar amount by age 55 is about $1 million. So the growth on this dollar amount minus the cost of the leverage plus the growth on his dollar amount, these two dollar amounts working together would give him by age 55 about $476,000 in cash value, and that equates to about 47K that he would be able to take in income. And then same at age 59, it would equate to about 75K, and then here about 137K in income is what he would be able to take
per year.
Per year, if he were to allow his policy to go out to kind of work its way through to these age points. But the piece I wanted to connect to is, what if he were to take that same $18,000 and do what his financial advisor is wanting and take that same $18,000 and put it into some account at Vanguard? What does Vanguard say? So for that, I want to pull up the Vanguard calculator. Give me just a minute. See how long it takes to load.
Well, in the meantime, we've got some questions if you want.
Yep, let's do it.
Okay. One of them is,
Perfect.
Gabo says, how likely is it that the company how likely is that company wants to raise the MEC every 3 years?
Okay.
Okay, so I think it's like, is this going to happen? Like, how likely to happen?
Yeah, let me help with that. So first off, we have to understand the strategy. The strategy is not because that MEC limit being increased isn't the company, it's you. This is where you're self-directed. You have control over this process. What I'm going to do is sit down with you and share with you what the options are. And here's what I mean. Year one, you're putting in your 18. Year two, you're putting in your 18. It's performing the way it's supposed to perform. You now have access to this leverage to be added to your account. It is optional. But let's go back to the goal. When we sat down and talked about this product, the goal was I want to generate wealth. The goal was I want to put my money in a position to where it can build and grow for me securely. That was the goal. So based off the goal, the next step in this process to make sure we're hitting that goal is to add leverage into your policy. In order to do that, we have to move the MEC limit. So that's where it becomes optional, because if you said, no, I don't want to, well, guess what you could do? You would have the option to, instead of bringing in $18,000 from the life insurance company, maybe you wanted to reduce your contribution down to $5,000 a year and use that difference between when you were putting in 18, now you're only putting in 5, that difference is 13 grand. Use 13 of leverage, and now you're still making 18 grand a year. I'm sorry, you're still contributing 18 grand a year into this policy, but only 5 of it is coming out of your pocket. So my point is, there are other levers that can be pulled if your objective shifts. If now you need more of your liquidity in your pocket, you still want this vehicle to grow. It's just not, your goals have shifted or changed. There are different levers that we can pull. So my point is, you have options. No one is forcing you to do anything. So is that any other questions?
Well, we can do them afterwards.
Okay. Yeah. And so all I wanted to highlight here is, what if, again, using the same age of 40 till 55, contributing, let me highlight it real quick. Where's my highlighter? There we go. Contributing this $18,000 from age 40 to age 55, again, just like we were doing inside of this secure compound interest account, allowing that $18,000 to compound. And you know what? I'm not going to do the 13 yet. I'm going to do what everyone talks about, that percentage of growth being, I'm going to call it 10%. So, all right. So $18,000 till age 55 with a annual return of about 10%, which is what everyone talks about what they're as to what they're achieving inside of a product like this. What does that look like? So let's calculate. What does that math look like by age? Did it calculate? There we go. What did I do wrong? 40 to 55. Yeah, I did all that right. It should not show 0. Is the age wrong?
It says 40. Plan to retire at 55.
Mm-hmm. Looks good. 18, 15, yep, 10%. Let's put it in again just to make sure. Let's recalculate, see what happens.
It won't let you retire early.
Clearly it won't. Let's put in 65.
It said, well, it's going to be about 12 years later. 12 years later.
Let's see. You know what? Let me reload the Vanguard calculator. Because here's the moral of the story. The moral of the story is you're going to get hit by what's called the 4% rule. What that means is you will accumulate, I'll call it a similar amount of cash value inside of this product. It will look very close. But the issue is, one, at age 55, what can you take in income from your retirement account at age 55? The truth is nothing. You cannot. Why? Because you can't use qualified dollars before the age of 59 without being taxed and penalized. So you can't even take income at 55, even though this vehicle is going to say it's going to produce somewhere around half of what you see inside this product. And so you can go back over to the vibe board. I don't know what's going on with Vanguard, so I'll just talk through it because I still know the numbers. And again, you can join me at Vanguard.com and you can do this yourself. Putting in the age of 55, putting in the age of 40 till age 55 at $18,000 a year, it produces somewhere around $12,000 in income. By age 59, it's about $24,000 in income. And by age 65, it's about, I want to say it's about $60,000 in income. The moral of the story is it's less, it's a lot less. So the key piece for me is this conversation should look more like, how do we work together to accomplish the goal? This should look more like, what are the actions that we need to take as both financial advisors and the guy that's doing this life insurance or this retirement consultant or whatever the role or responsibility I might have in this process as it relates to you. We should start here. What's the goal? A great question for his financial advisor to ask is, why did you get this policy in the first place?
Yeah.
Like what was the purpose?
Exactly.
Was it for the death benefit, meaning you wanted to make sure your family was taken care of, or was it for the leverage? Was it for the income? Hey, there's this thing called infinite banking. Is it about that? What was the point? And then if from his perspective, this policy isn't doing what it's supposed to, now let's have a discussion around why. And how about this? What are the products he can provide that can accomplish these same goals? Like this is absolutely, or this should absolutely be a this and that conversation, not a this or that. So if this is you and you are having some of these similar discussions, I'm trying to keep the flag in, but I'll get rid of the flag. If you're trying to have some of these similar discussions, what are some of those questions that you should be asking? Whether it's to me, to a financial advisor, to some life insurance guy, to the bank, like what are some of those questions you should be asking? Well, if we're going to talk fees, let's talk fees. What are those fees and how do they compare to what's happening within the industry as it relates to now? And I'm talking about the fees for your services. It's not just the fees of how the product works, but what does it cost to work with you? Whether it's a life insurance guy, financial advisor, doesn't matter. What are your fees? And how do they compare to the industry? What does this recommendation, or how does your recommendation fit into my financial goals? Again, going back to what is the goal? Because maybe you can't help me retire early. Maybe if my objective is to be able to generate income outside of traditional retirement age, maybe I need to look at some other vehicles. Maybe I need to focus a little bit more on real estate. But if your financial advisor only can offer you, again, what they have to sell, mutual funds, stocks, and bonds in most cases, can they honestly have that discussion with you? So I go back to, it's not a or discussion, it's an and discussion. Let's have that conversation with your financial advisor and these other people, these other institutions, so that you can hit your goal. What's the downside? What's the risk? I think a great question that should have been asked inside this policy when his financial advisor was reviewing it is, let's walk through both ends of the spectrum. What's the worst case? What's the best case inside this product based off your goals? Meaning, hey, if it's impacted by the market and it dips, what's the full effect on this product? And maybe he would have learned, financial advisor that is, that the impact of the market dropping or as changing precedents or inflation or whatever the traditional risks are inside of qualified plans doesn't exist inside this product because of the 0% floor. It's a great conversation to have. which also further says you don't want all of your investment dollars tied up in just one thing. You want to be diversified, and true diversification is, hey, I am not solely dependent upon how the market does or doesn't do. A few other questions. Are you familiar with this strategy? Not are you familiar with life insurance? Not are you familiar with an IUL or whole life or term policies? These strategies that we're using to be able to accomplish our goal, do you even understand what they are? And if you do, can you recite them to me? And if not, hey, let's both go get educated together. Again, especially if you've got my best interest at heart, you are a fiduciary, right? So let's go get educated together because you are concerned about my well-being. Then join me in this process. Like, what's the harm in that?
Right.
Assumptions. What are the assumptions being made based off the projections that you are suggesting? What are those assumptions? And let's detail them out. And you're looking for a range of, and that's what I love about these illustrations. These illustrations are meant to underpromise. I enjoy going back to clients a year later and saying, hey, we were anticipating this performance, but you ended up getting this performance. It's all, to me, that kind of cements where we are and where we're going and how this can actually work for you in the long run. And then what happens if I follow this advice, but my goals, my circumstances change? Because it happens. Maybe you get married, maybe a baby comes into a picture, maybe you want to buy a home. Like, what happens if my circumstances change, and how can I use this vehicle to support those things? If we're talking about a Roth IRA, how can you leverage your Roth IRA if your circumstances change and you want to be able to now qualify for a home? You can't. But in a properly structured cash value life insurance policy, there's an opportunity for you to be able to use some of that leverage to do other things.
It's not updating for some reason.
Oh, yeah, I do see that.
Here we go with this.
So, well, if you want, because the others are, I guess the last one that I would cover is the fiduciary responsibility piece. Do you have a fiduciary responsibility to me? Yes or no? If you do, then again, this further implies that this is an and conversation, not an or conversation. Or is your fiduciary responsibility to your broker dealer first? Meaning your main goal, your main objective is to make sure that you've identified the mutual fund, stocks and bonds, this list of products to sell, because your fiduciary responsibility is to Morgan Stanley, to Vanguard, to Edward Jones, not specifically to me first. I think that's it, sweetheart.
All right. Well, let's go back to it then. Let's get to some questions. I don't know what happened here. Let me go check it out. You want to answer some questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Here, use this mouse and you can pull them up that way.
Perfect.
And I will go, we'll start with Sequia.
Hey, Sequia. Let's see. Financial advisor was just doing what he was told. And that's just it. Let me mute this. And that's just it. In most cases, what we're dealing with is we're dealing with people who sell products. We're dealing with people who work for a company. We're dealing with employees. We're not dealing with subject matter experts in truth. We're dealing with someone who got a degree, went to work for a company. That company taught them about the products that they sell, the products that they offer. And based off the products that they sell and the products that they offer, there's a commission that comes along with that. And so in truth, they're just salesmen. And I think that the part for me is this should be empowering, meaning here's an opportunity for you to take control back. When you walk into Bank of America and Bank of America is telling you how first position home equity lines of credit are stupid, you know that the only reason that they're telling you that isn't because there's a problem with first position home equity lines of credit. They're telling you that because that's not the product they want you to buy. when you walk in there with Jones and you're trying to understand, hey, my time horizon is 15 years. And I am looking to retire early within that period. Hey, Edward Jones, what can you do to assist me in my quest to be able to retire before the qualified age of 59 and a half? What can you do? Is it something? Is it nothing? Okay, maybe it's something, meaning, hey, there's a 401k out there that you can leverage and use before that age, but you cannot take income. Okay, let's talk through what those limitations are and your ability to help me get to my goal so that I can then pivot and go head down a path that can actually get me there. So you're 100% correct. That advisor was just doing what he was told. He was just selling the products that he had to offer. And that was it.
Something happened again with these displays, and I'm trying to figure out.
I see another question from, is that Peaky?
I don't get what's happening here. Yeah. Okay. Well, let me figure out. I don't know what to do here now. All right. Okay. Well, here's a comment from Peaky.
Oh, that was a comment from Peaky. Okay.
Yeah. Says, I'll fix that in a minute. I don't know what happens. Something happened.
It's all right.
This is what it is. He says the soda pop strategy, stepping over dollars and pocketing only pennies. So sad. Yeah, that's a good acronym for it, for sure. I think we need to. I like to use humor too for these for any type of like heavy, daunting situation. Like humor helps a lot of people get through, right? This part is so devastating, though. This is devastating to somebody's future, and either because let's see. Antonio said it. Could this have been willful ignorance?
And this is where...
Because I don't want to accuse, right?
Right. And this is where I have to give the benefit of the doubt. These people have to be way smarter than me.
Well, they have passed exams in order to be financial advisor.
Right. You didn't get your series whatever license because you couldn't, methodically work your way through a problem and be able to identify a solution. I have to give you the benefit of the doubt. Willful to me is punishable by jail. Like that cannot happen. That is not okay. So I can't go down that path. I stand on it's a this and a that conversation. And it's okay if that, because I've been in my silo, I only know the products that I have to offer, and I didn't know these other things exist. That's okay. But if I'm a true fiduciary and I'm truly focused on making sure I'm taking care of you, I am willing to learn. I am willing to do the necessary work to help you take whatever those steps are, even if that means you have to go somewhere else. And real quick, pass me that remote right there.
Let me figure out what this is.
No, you're right, because we can do that.
Okay, all right, fine. So, could this have been willful ignorance? Well, let's take a vote. What do you guys think? Well, let's take a vote. Let's just leave it to the people. What would you think if after you had this conversation with this person, then you realized what you actually lost and that it wasn't going to be okay and that there wasn't any guarantee at minimum, the money that he had put in, his beneficiaries, if something were to have happened to him the next day, right, they would have been more than taken care of.
Right.
He was advised to shut all of that down and go play in the casino. That's essentially what he said. He was like, listen, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Like, get over here. We've got these slot machines, and I've been working in this casino for a long time. And I'm telling you right now, sometimes people hit. Just keep pumping money into the machine. Is that not the truth? And then you're playing against the house on top of that, because when you win, they like to say, like, when you win, we win, right? When they win, they get more in commission because of all of the fees, even though it's up to 2/3 of your entire account and can strip 19 years off of your retirement, which means most people, the traditional person could have retired 19 years earlier if it weren't for all the dang fees being taken out. But let's just call it that they're being rewarded for the work that they put in, right?
Right.
Let's call it that. Okay. All right. You worked hard to grow this account, then you deserve 2/3 of it. No, that's not true. But whatever, that's what happens, right?
It's true.
Okay, but you're playing against the house, because when you lose, he does not lose. There is no refund coming from a financial advisor when the market crashes, when you lose money. There's not a chargeback that comes from their account from the commissions that they've already been paid on the amount that you've put in, right?
Right. This reminds me of that story we talked about last year, where we had this client of mine had gotten her MPI strategy, was really excited about it, and was headed to Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And she
good.
sits down at the table for Thanksgiving, and, it's filled with her parents, grandparents, cousins, uncles, and she's excited about this strategy. She's excited about how she's taking full control over what retirement is going to look like, maybe even putting herself in a position to be able to retire early. And she starts spouting off at the mouth around this cash value life insurance product with leverage, blah, blah, blah. And she gets murdered at that dining room table.
Yeah, she did.
She was being called all sorts of ignorant and what did you do and all of these, to the point where she reached out to me.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on here? And it's one of the biggest pieces was, I think it was her father maybe, is a financial advisor. So her father handles all of the, manages all of the funds for the family, right? Mm-hmm. He offers all of the products he sells, his family has. And so it was a very difficult time for her. But the cool part about that is, fast forward, me and her dad got on a call and I helped him understand how this is an and conversation. He never even thought to bring in cash value life insurance policies as an option.
Right.
Because it's never been, I'll call it, advertised that way.
Right.
And so I go back to, I want to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, especially when you're talking about dealing with other people's money. I want to do that. So my thought process is,
I want to do that too.
So my point is, if that's the case, then what we need to arm you with is being able to ask better questions when you get that pushback, so that we can get to a better place to help this become an and discussion. Because if you're not participating in if your financial advisor is going, this is stupid, you're being ripped off, blah, 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 maybe it's let's peel back the layers a little bit more. Show me how, show me where, what do you mean? Hey, would you be willing to get on a call and having this discussion with Donnell? Because from my understanding, it's supposed to function this way. You're saying something different. There's a disconnect here, and it's not my job to determine what the disconnect is, just to be honest. So let me pull to the two subject matter experts together, and let me sit back and watch you guys hash this out. Like, explain to me why this is or isn't this way. We should be doing more of that. Why? Because I did say I was a fiduciary, right? I did say I have your best interest at heart, right? I did say that I want what's best for you, right? So if all of that is true, then I should be willing to take these extra steps to make sure that you are okay. Versus, don't do that, only do this because this is what I sell. That sounds like a salesman to me.
Well, it sounds like it's okay for us all to say, I've never heard of that. Please tell me about it. But what ends up happening is, like the lady, I love the story of the lady at Thanksgiving dinner, which is, by the way, what inspired our whole Pass the Gravy live stream that we did last Thanksgiving Eve, right? It was because we had this situation with her, and she's tons of people are sitting down to have family meals, and it's about to happen again. So this is probably like a good little seed to throw out there. And you want to be able to pull your family in and say, like, guys, you got to listen to this. But there are so many people who refuse to input new information. They don't want to hear it. If it's new and they don't know it, it must be trash. Must be garbage. I don't know what that is.
If Dave Ramsey didn't say it.
Yeah, I don't know. No, I don't know what it is. So heck no, I'm not doing it. I've been using corn syrup for years and red dye number 5. I don't know what this organic stuff is, so I'm not going to use it, right? They just are going like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But this is hurting people, right? Continuing with these traditional ingredients, let's call them ingredients, it's hurting people. So we have to have better solutions. And they're like, no, we don't need better solutions. Like, we just don't. Because the rest of that sentence is, because it makes me feel uncomfortable.
Right.
It makes me feel uneducated. It makes me not feel as confident when you're talking about things that I don't know about. I only want to talk about things that I feel confident in because that's my ego speaking, right. And I can't say that part. So I'm just going to act like this is law, this is the word, this is the end all be all because I don't want to input any new information because that makes me not feel as confident. Well, newsflash, nobody feels confident because they're not financially stable. That's the part. Who cares about you feeling confident if your clients don't feel confident, right? And the part that really is upsetting to me is, one, that he wasn't actually, it wasn't in the client's best interest in protecting him. If he really truly had the interest of protecting him, he would have first educated him,
sought to understand,
and made sure that he felt confident. Not that he had made a mistake, not that he had done, he was foolish, not that this is now your consequence, look what you did type of thing. Because by the time you called, he almost felt like it was going to be this confrontation of like, this is what I did and I've already done it. And so therefore, and then when he realized what he had actually done, that he had done it from a place of, I was ashamed that I couldn't combat this. Mm-hmm. That's where that lady in the Thanksgiving conversation came from, that she started to feel ashamed that she couldn't combat it with these people who were telling her that she must be wrong because why would this thing be out there and it must be trash? They didn't even know what it was. Right. But often when people get on the phone with you, when they have their financial advisor, when they have their other insurance agent, when they have their uncle, their aunt, their neighbor, their whoever, get on the call, it's not confrontational, it's educational. And now you kind of like open this door with that person, whoever that professional is, to say, like, first I'm going to walk you through. Are you familiar with this? No, I'm not really familiar with this. That's why I have these red flags. Cool. That makes sense, right? Like, that makes total sense. It makes sense to you guys, right? But then by the time you walk them through it, they're not finding all the reasons why this couldn't work. They're wanting to poke holes naturally in it, but most of the time you've already poked those holes for them. So then they have the remaining questions that they have, which you validate. Yes, these are valid concerns and valid questions. Let's talk about it. And then on top of that, what I hear you do is you open the door that says, would you want to know anything else about this? Is there anything else that we haven't covered? By the time they walk away, what they're thinking to themselves is, how do I get one for myself?
Right.
And often professionals will end up booking a call, and even though they may not be able to recommend it to clients, they want one for themselves, but because of where they work, they cannot recommend it to somebody else. And that's unfortunate.
I did 2 nationwide clients this week. They can't get the product that I offer from nationwide. So they reached out to me.
Yeah. Okay. Gabo says, I wonder what he did instead with the 5,000. What that so-called advisor suggested. Yeah. Like, what did he do with the rest? After he took the $15,000 hit, he walked away. He put in 36, walked away with 5. What did he do with it?
Okay, I'll let you guys answer that, because is there an infinite list of things that that financial advisor could offer? Is it infinite? Like, are there a million? There's not. There's like 5. Mutual funds, stocks, bonds, high yield savings account.
And the quarter slot machines on the first floor.
My point
That's
is,
pretty much what it is.
it's not a, he can't offer real estate, can't offer land, can't offer crypto, no gold, no silver. Like, what are those things?
Free buffet. You get access to the buffet while you're gambling here. Free
And so
drinks.
if it was up to me, I think the way this all looks different is you guys, as you get self-directed, as you take more control over what it is you're doing, you need a team. If the objective is to be able to retire early, or I've got this time horizon, or buy this house, I want to pay off this debt, whatever it is, you need a team around you, and you lead this team. This team does not lead you. I think we've been conditioned to believe that banks, financial institutions, and life insurance companies lead us because they are the subject matter experts. They're not. They sell products. So we need to just flip that. You are in control, and you need a team. You need a life insurance guy. You need a finance guy. You need a banking guy. And we should all be locking arms together to support you.
That part. Yeah.
And knowing that, hey, this life insurance guy can't get you a HELOC. So I'm not going to overstep my bounds and sell you HELOCs are bad. We just need to get you with the right HELOC guy so that you can accomplish your goal.
Matter of fact, there's a lot of real estate gurus out here who don't even understand how to leverage a HELOC. That's wild to me. Or a self-directed account, right? Like that is wild to me. But it's true. They have learned to do how they've done it. And we say it all the time. There are many ways to 10. But it doesn't mean that there's only one way. There's only one right way. Right. Sometimes I use the analogy of Iron Chef all the time. Like, what's in the basket? And then you have to figure out what can you make with those ingredients. It's not saying, well, now we can't eat because I can't make the things that I know how to make. So who cares if there's a rabbit? There's always like a rabbit or something weird, like octopus, something strange that you're just like, who eats that? But then when you see somebody who understands
how
those ingredients, and you go, and your mouth is watering and you're thinking to yourself, like, I would never have wanted to even try rabbit. Probably maybe don't still want to, but it looks
pretty good.
It looks a lot better than if you would have just asked me before he opened the basket, like, would you ever eat rabbits? Like, maybe you don't tell me what it is, and then I might have even tried it, right?
Tastes like chicken.
Yeah, but somebody who understands the ingredients, what they can make is different than what somebody else would make, right?
Right.
I look little compared to you. Like, we look the same size on our other stream.
You mad at that?
No, I like.
Okay,
little.
I was gonna say. I wish I was the same size as you. No, you don't. No, you don't.
I look littler.
Littler.
Yeah, littler. Okay, we got some more questions here. Peaky says, I have a curious question. How long does someone have to be tobacco free to be considered such? He should have just jumped on a phone call. That was really expensive advice that he got.
You know he didn't meet with his financial advisor for free. You know he didn't. You know there was a 1%, 2%. There's a charge there. And you're absolutely, they could have conferenced me in for free.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so how long does it take, someone have to be tobacco free to be considered such?
It depends. That time frame, that is. I've had several clients who I would call them recreational smokers. And I want to say it was like 2 years nicotine free. But I've had clients who have been smoking because they ask a lot of different questions. How long have you been smoking? Like, when did it start? All that kind of fun stuff. And I think I've had clients who, have been smoking since grade school or whatever, high school or whatever. And even though they stopped 3-4 years ago, 5 years ago, that wasn't enough for them to, so it kind of varies there.
Oh, and then there was the one guy who he doesn't really ever smoke. But before his exam, there was some celebration, and he took
had a cigar.
He had a cigar. Yeah. And they were like, "Oh, you're a smoker." And he was like, what? I had a cigar at a thing like that. Never happens. It rarely happens. Yeah. They're like, yeah, okay.
and here's the thing. He won't be able to come back. Like there's nothing that you can do. He's labeled a smoker. He will be a smoker for the next, until he retests. And that's the answer. So how long? It's, if you, let's say you had an exam today and you got your policy today and you've had this policy for a year, we're hitting year 3, you're about to go through your jump, which means you may need another exam. You go through that exam and it shows no nicotine. Like, you will get the preferred rating. So it's whatever the exam says in a lot of cases, because so if nicotine is there, it's going to show. If you have been a habitual smoker for a certain period of time, I know there are buckets of time, 2 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. I know there are ranges there as well.
Okay, Zanelli Cat says, and welcome, by the way. Seen you in a while. What do you think about the notion of taxing unrealized gains?
It's the age-old thought process around the government's going to get theirs at some point. So it's, if they can't tax you here, they're going to tax you there, right?
Well, you got to think of it. The whole concept behind taxing was really like a promise. For them, they're looking at, we're going to allow this strategy that we've put into place because we'll actually win in the end. And then when people start finding these creative ways of like reducing those taxes, not paying as much, they're going, well, hey, hold on a second. When we did our numbers, when we forecasted our spread, right, we saw this number happening from this person or a person like this. And so therefore, if you're no longer, because they're unrealized, right? If we don't start taxing on these, our tax benefit, our taxes, our investment, is going to dwindle, and we depend on taxes in order to hit these things and keep these promises. That we'll just save all that for another time. Okay, that's another live stream. It's probably not one we should cover.
Definitely not.
Yeah, but the idea of what they promise and what their job is, right, and what they're supposed to be doing with the tax dollars, that they need tax dollars to be funding those initiatives. So taxing unrealized gains is, there's been how many decades have we gone without doing this, right? Decades. But now we have to implement this because people have gotten so creative, and we have so many people that are making a crap ton of money and not legally not paying taxes on it. So now they're just trying to sop up all that they can with whatever biscuit or bread they can find.
And here's the truth around that. Those who are trying to implement this have already, they already have the antidote to make sure it's not impacting them.
Yeah.
And as that antidote comes to us, we will do the same. Like, it's almost like living in a Roth environment. The main people that are talking about taxing unrealized gain have already protected themselves to make sure they can't be. And so what does that mean for us? That means that we have to become self-directed. That means that we have to take control over our situation so we can also not be impacted by this. So it doesn't matter who's president. It doesn't matter what happens inside the market.
Yeah.
We are protected. And that's the objective, to become those who are making these rules, to become the banks, the financial institutions, and the life insurance companies that have already figured out how to jump the hurdles that they're forcing us to jump over.
And just something else to note here is, if your retirement structure, your retirement income structure is around products that will be taxed at some later date, like this open checkbook, then consider the fact that they can change the rules on what's taxed and what's not taxed, right? So if you're leaving yourself susceptible and you've done the math, assuming that you're going to be okay, even the transfer of wealth, right? Some of the changes that are happening with that, and why there are so many people who, they thought that they were leaving this house to their kids. They thought that they were going to love the equity that they were handing over, and these kids are like hot potato, like, get it out of my hands. I don't want to pay the taxes on this. And so I have to sell within this time period, or we really lose everything that you left because we're going to be taxed on it.
Right.
And because we're going to be taxed on it, it puts us in a higher tax bracket. Like, this is a domino effect, right? So understanding that by the time you get to it, I don't think that's what mom and pop were planning for. I don't think that's that kind of, I don't think they were trying to leave them with that kind of stress.
Right.
For sure not. So knowing that there are some ironclad tax-free income, tax-free inheritance, right? Strategies. Can I say that? Can I call it that? Okay. That exist and have existed forever. And there are far too many people that benefit from these being tax-free, but you have to belong to that class in order to have this as a part of your normal strategy, right? Now we can. Now we don't have to have $4 or $5 million in net worth just to be able to opt in. Now everybody can jump in. They just don't know about it. And how cruel is it when you're trying to have these conversations with people that you trust and they are like batting this down, not even realizing that what they're batting down is you saying, I think for the first time, I believe that I could be financially stable. Guys, listen, like, can we have a discussion about that? And they're like, no, you can't. Psh, like, that ain't for you. Like, why would you even think that? Don't do that. Don't believe in yourself. And then well, what should I do then? Come on over here to this casino where you get free drinks and a buffet. We'll give you a ticket to eat at the buffet for free. All you can eat. All you can eat. Oh, and did we mention we have prime rib? Because we do. And you're supposed to be like drooling at the mouth and that's supposed to be enough. But then the next day you wake up and you're like, okay, I'm hungry again. They're like, got a plate to eat, right? You got a plate to drink. And if you're out of money, you can't just be willy-nilly walking around in here. Like, we need you to be playing by the rules of this casino. This is how we make money, and that's all we really care about. So whatever else you're talking about, we don't want to have those conversations. And that's why community is so important, because your community that you build, this is the one you get to choose for yourself. This is the team that you get to choose for yourself. Even if part of these community members, part of your team, is just cheering you on because they understand the strategy that you're doing. They're willing to have these discussions because they too are just as eager and interested in learning. Community is super important. Sometimes that means you have to opt out of friendships and relationships. We've done that. And some people didn't get it.
Right. Still don't.
Still don't. I got a phone call while we're live. And this person's like, hey, what are you doing? I've known this person for years. Don't you know what we're doing? Don't you know what we're doing by now? But they don't. And that's why when they say, like, how come we never hang out as much anymore? And it's like, we are on a mission and you're missing it, right? You're missing it. So what I can't do is say, we didn't hit our goals. We are not where we want to be, because we made time for people who did not want to make this stuff important.
Well, and not only that, this is more purposeful. So it's being obedient to why we think we're here. And what I can't do is not do what I've been led to do, and that is give the information away. I've been blessed with the opportunity to be placed in a position to where we could become self-directed.
Yeah.
So we could have more control over what our financial future looks like.
Yeah.
And so the thought process is, well, how do we do that for others? And it's maybe in order to stay obedient to that, we can't participate in some of the ancillary things that others can, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you gotta
opt out.
You gotta opt out. Okay. Veronica has a good question. Would you recommend joint or separate policies for couples?
So it depends on the goal. Because in most cases, the joint policies are, in most cases, term. If we're talking about a properly structured cash value life insurance product that is designed to produce income or leverage or do infinite banking or whatever those things are, in most cases, you can't get a combined policy. Why? This is you leveraging your existence as an asset. And so you and I can't leverage us as an asset. It's leverage me and it's leverage you. And then now we can have both of those policies and go do certain things. But in most cases, if we're talking about a properly designed product that you're using as leverage and income, it wouldn't be a policy that you would have joint anyway.
However, you can leverage us with a self-directed account.
Oh, absolutely. So, and again, this goes back to last week's conversation around where's your leverage.
Yeah.
Understanding where your leverage is located and how you and your spouse can commingle funds inside of a qualified plan to be able to build and generate wealth and leverage and borrow against that to be able to use. So you're absolutely right. There are vehicles where having a joint policy or having a joint structured plan or whatever the case may be does make sense. So there absolutely are areas where that does make sense. Good point.
Piki says, my stomach kind of hurts for the gentleman. Wonder how he felt about his decision after the conversation with you.
Yeah. And, you know, we all put on a good face, right? So I can't say that I know how he felt. But what I wanted to make clear to him was we're not done. Like all is not lost. It's just this specific policy is done for. But what's the goal? If the goal is still retire early, if the goal is still supplemental income, it's a this and a that conversation. And I left the door open to, I would happily get on a call with his advisor and let's break this stuff down, because my concern isn't just for him. Who else is that advisor giving the same information to?
Right.
Who else is being hurt by this misinformation? So it was, you know, I left the kind of the door open to, I am still willing to have, you know, even though it may not apply to his specific policy, there's still an opportunity to close some gaps around knowledge. So let's close some gaps.
Yeah. And then this is a good question from Gabo. Did the client didn't get a yearly review of his policy in order to make sure the customer was on the right track or remembers what the strategy implemented from the beginning? And that's where we went. We have to do a better job of educating, because not everybody's tuning into the live streams, right? But the other thing that we thought we were doing right is by putting you in the driver's seat, right? Instead of there being some hand holding and you feeling like you're dependent on, what we're really, really trying to encourage people to do is get educated so that they are in control. That doesn't mean that there can't be more touch points around updates or things like that, because I think there can be. But I think we get inundated with so much that how are we possibly being educated necessarily by waiting for someone else to deliver that information to us, and then they're only delivering the information that how do you customize it for each individual person and what they want. I agree that like an annual review could be a good thing for sure, but I just don't want to say that we are supposed to do this. I think it's a great thing to do. It's a great service. We're not opposed to it. But it doesn't take away from the concept of being self-directed and you taking control. That is where your power is, right? That's where your control is, because what if something were to happen to us tomorrow and we're not here to send you the updates? You should, if you've been tuning in, you should know how to read your policy. You should know how to check to make sure that you're on. And doesn't that feel better than you waiting for somebody else to sign off on it? Doesn't it feel better to know? You can still double check, right? But doesn't it feel better? And doesn't it feel better to you when clients are like reading you back? Like, I get it.
Right.
Yeah.
So Gabo, I can't help but laugh because you're getting exactly what I got, because when this took place, I immediately jumped in the accountability bucket. It was, how did I screw this up? Like, how did I
leave him feeling like
right. What is it that I could have done differently to make sure that when this client sat down with his financial advisor, he was armed with the right information? And so I started backing up, going, because you talk about the yearly reviews. There's not a yearly review. There's a yearly touch base. At year 3, there's an actual yearly review. Where I found this out is I was calling to do the review to be able to add this leverage at year 2. So I was actually taking action to have that review is when I learned that this had already taken place. So it was, you know what? I've got other people in this industry that I know who actually make sure that they touch each one of their clients on a monthly basis. So maybe there should be some type of monthly newsletter. Like I was going like my mind was just going round and around about how could I have helped this process go a different way? Like, what could I have done differently? And she, exactly what she just told you was exactly how she pulled me out of it as well. And it was, well, what's the purpose of becoming self-directed? It's about control.
Right.
And so it's making sure that we are standing on a solid foundation of confidence around, hey, I have full control over my financial well-being. And even if I am challenged, that doesn't mean I don't. Even if I am challenged, that just means there are some other actions that I might have to take to be able to accomplish that goal. There are some, I'm challenged on my efforts to be able to get this first position home equity line of credit. That doesn't mean I'm not going to get it. It's maybe I need to step back and get some more other questions answered. Let me go have some other conversations with the people that I'm getting this product from and maybe involve those who are saying that this does not make sense. And again, I am the leader in this space. Let me put them in a room and let me let them fight it out, and then let them come back to me and explain to me why this is or isn't the right decision. It's having more control in this process. But so I agree with you, Gabo. But again, I appreciate what you stated, because that's exactly what you did for me. And it was this and that. It was, yeah, there's some things that we can do better. There's some things that we can do differently. There's some things that we can improve to make sure we're having more touch points with the clients that we have. But in addition to that, there's some ownership, and there's some, again, that's what getting self-directed means. So I appreciate that.
But it also comes down to what we were talking about is the belief somebody has around whether or not they feel that they can be in control,
right,
whether or not they believe that they can learn this stuff. And sometimes, even though they like the idea of becoming self-directed, they may still not believe that they could ever be in that position. I, of all people, can understand that sentiment, that fear, that doubt, right? And what I hope is that just by sharing our personal experience, our personal successes, right? The milestones, I mean, we're hitting them like crazy right now. And I was just having a conversation with our youngest last night, and he was walking me through what he thought our future would look like 10 years ago, 10 or more years ago, and how he had saw other families, right? Like affluent families or not affluent families. We'll say that. And he thought, well, I don't know which one, but just based off of the other family members in our circles, we're probably more than likely never going to be this affluent family. And he said that he, to this day, struggles to watch some of the things that we're doing, realize some of the successes that we've had as our family successes, because he had identified at a very young age that just wasn't possible. Not that he was sad about it. It just became almost
matter of fact.
A fact. Yeah, fact to him. Like, this is how I'm going to identify. Because,
and that's okay. I'll survive. Like,
yeah.
It was. I'm putting on the shield that I need to be able to make it through these struggles, because it's just a part of my life's work.
Yeah. So anything above the minimum that I've just now set for me and my family in my mind, anything above that is winning. So what's the point of really like setting goals super high? So if my welfare is threatened, then we may have a conversation. And I think that's where this confusion can be brewed. When somebody says, hey, you're making a grave mistake. Look at what's going to happen to you when you're 70 with only this part of the information, right?
Right.
And he's going, well, I've been working really hard to get me out of whatever I'd identified with before. And I had this spark of hope that came that said I could be in a different income class. I could be having a different lifestyle. I could feel different about financial stability as a whole. And you're saying that there's a threat to that, then I don't feel so confident about this. Instead of going, because somebody said it, instead of asking more questions and calling Donnell up and saying, hey, before I do this, right, can you help me understand? Or here's some questions that came up that caused a lot of confusion and are really shaking my faith in the strategy. Instead of doing that, he leaped into, and it was because I said at the beginning of the stream, because of his relationship with that person.
Right.
But that person is not tied to the results. His results are his consequences or rewards, right? The other person is going to get the fees regardless. Like, he's not going to realize any of those consequences for his own future.
It's true.
Yeah. So that's unfortunate. Zaid is a great example of somebody who is not only educated himself, making confident decisions, educated decisions, but he is the prime example of an each one teach one. And that's what I appreciate about Zaid.
Yeah, he's definitely a family member, long-standing family member, part of this team. But the thing about it is, I think we've been so conditioned to allow others to be subject matter experts for our own success.
Yeah.
And it's really just stepping back and going, you know what? Thank you for your feedback, but let's just peel these layers back a little bit and just understand more. But what that requires, though, it requires you to participate. You have to want this information.
Yeah, for sure.
It would be very, very easy to see whatever the comments are in the peripheral and allow those to distract you. Mm-hmm. You really have to want to peel the layers back. And I pray that what we're doing is just making that investigation process easier. I think I kind of call my superpower the ability to take complicated things and break them down into bite-sized pieces. I don't know that what we did today was bite-sized or very digestible. It was still very illustration heavy.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it was as clear as it could have been. But if you take nothing else away, take away this. There may be more details involved in this process than maybe what you have in front of you. So let me go find the right person to have this discussion to understand those details better. Nothing else. Selfdirected.info / calendar. Jump on my calendar. And let's get some of these questions answered. Write them down. Fill up that pad. And then just pepper me with them. Hey, why is this? How is this? What does this mean? You said this, but what about that? And let's talk about it. That financial advisor that's telling you, you know what? This process, this strategy may not work out the way that you want. Ask why. Grab those questions. Jump on a call with me. Get on my calendar. Let's talk about it. Like, there's no harm in understanding the reasons why. But I go back to, you have to be willing to participate in this process. You have to want that information. You have to want those answers. And that's what I'm here for. Yeah.
Okay. Gabo saying, I want to join the Facebook group. Can someone please share the link with me? That's the website. You go to that link right there.
That's not it.
That's not the right sound.
That's not it. No, it was this one.
Oh, okay.
It was that one. See, I'm learning. I don't have these buttons at my disposal, so I apologize because that's not what I meant. I meant that. But I mean, I'm learning, so. And that's the cool part. I think that's the other cool part about us being able to do this together. I do get to participate in some things that normally I just sit here and wait for them to be done. And so it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so I hope for anybody jump in, and this is a great place to ask questions too if you don't feel like asking them on a live. Yeah. But also you can go to the same site to gain access to his calendar where you can jump on and ask pepper away with those questions.
Yeah, I don't want
pepper spray if you want. Okay. Anthony Doty says, family, the first ones to criticize you. It's sad, really. And that's the part that I meant to bring up earlier when you were saying what happens in year 3. When you are walking people through the strategy, you're really focused on the strategy because That's the important part. That's the part that you
I'm a math
teach.
guy.
Yeah.
I'm a math guy.
You stay focused on the money, on the decisions, right? But the part that stood out to me was actually what happens is has nothing to do with the strategy. What happens in year 1? What happens in year 2? Before you even get to year 3, what happens in year 1 is there's a lot of people that start making you feel like you should doubt your decisions. There's a lot of people that benefited from your old mindset and your old goals, right? That suddenly aren't benefiting anymore. And so they're going, well, hold on a second. Like, why wouldn't you want the same thing when people stop drinking, right? And the people who benefited from that person who went out all the time and got fun and loose and whatever was drinking with them, they go, hold on a second. I don't like this version of you, right? I want the old version back. It doesn't matter if you're like, hey, I've got to save a liver, right? That's why I'm doing this. They're like, yeah, it's no fun saving a liver though, right? Like, I don't know. It's not a vibe.
Don't you want to drink?
Yeah, I don't know. But can't we just, like, one time? Like, I don't know. I don't know how to have fun or hang out with you without this element, right? Without this type of person that you were. Sometimes when we set goals, it requires a different version of ourselves. And in order to become and realize that version of ourselves, we have to be able to make changes. And not everybody who came with you are going to go with you.
Right.
And that's, it's uncomfortable. But a lot of the time, as Anthony has pointed out here, it'd be your own family, your own blood. Pinky says we're having meat and jello this November. And isn't that what it is, though? There were so many people who, these are the same people, for the meat and jello reference, these are the same people who are married to these traditional strategies who are, one, not benefiting from them, by the way. They're now realizing that, oops, we messed up and we can't go back. Now what are we going to do, right? So that's the boomer generation. But these are the same people who thought meat and jello made a fancy meal, put it in magazines. You still to this day could go many of places, find molds in the shape of fish, because that's what you wanted to see at your dinner table. You wanted to see in the shape of a fish, meat, jello, vegetables, even sometimes mayonnaise and olives, right? But in the shape of a fish. And when your husband came home, when your kids when they rolled up to the table, they were like, wow. It's like the giant chicken nugget, dino nuggets, right? But jello. And whoever she was just looking at that like, I did that, y'all. Marvel at my fish-shaped jello mold. Catch the layers, mayonnaise and olives. Did that, and they were proud. Take a picture, put it in a magazine.
I cannot relate.
Well, your grandma used to make one because your mom told me that she had it before. You never had it?
I cannot relate.
I was just thinking, you guys, that maybe just as a special treat, I would ask her for that recipe. I have asked her what's in it before. And I would just try it. Because the truth is, your mom said it jams. Like, she has a taste for it. And I don't know if it's because it's a trauma response from having to eat it.
I cannot relate.
Or if it really is good. But I thought, you know what? What's the harm? What's the harm in trying it?
Nothing, because I mean, you'd be eating it by yourself.
Yeah.
Taco Bell is right down the street.
And then maybe we will eat it right here on this stream.
Yeah, I cannot relate.
We're going to do that. Maybe. Okay. So we've got some more questions. I just want to make sure we get through them. Okay. So let's just move down to the questions. So do the jumps every 3 years, other than being in good health, doesn't the client need to make more income than before in order to qualify for a higher MEC limit in order to increase annual premiums? Great question.
The thing about that is we all have this max insurability. And you can, in some cases, yes, you are correct, but in others, no. Because that max insurability piece is based off your income and your age. There's a multiplier times your income, which allows you to achieve that max insurability. So let's say, give you an example, using this gentleman being 40 years of age, let's say he makes $100,000 a year. his max insurability is based off 30 times his income. 3 times 100,000, that's $3 million. So he's got a $3 million, I'll call it, maximum amount of life insurance that he can have. Well, by the time he hits 50, that multiplier goes from 30 to 20. If he's making more, then okay, that his max insurability is still above that $3 million mark. But if he is already max funded, he can't lose the room that he created. So do you have to make more? Not necessarily, because you also don't have to contribute more. It's that what is that max insurability dollar amount based off your age and your income at that time. So if you've been doing this process for the last 15 years and now you're at 60 and 60 is 10 times your income, can you qualify for more room? Can you qualify for more life insurance is the question. And it could be possible that you cannot based off your income. But again, in most cases, at least the situations that I've run into, I've not run into a situation like that at the moment because up front, we qualify you for a maximum amount of your max insurability up front.
But you know you don't have to qualify for to leverage your policy.
Right.
And that's the cool part is that even if something were to happen health-wise along the way, you don't have to have permission and you don't have to qualify to be able to leverage what is in your policy. And so if at some point somebody wasn't able to jump, they were still able to fund their current policy, but they weren't able to jump. And now they have to pivot because of health reasons. They couldn't implement further, accelerate the strategy. They could then pivot into real estate. They could pivot into any other passive income machine that they wanted to build.
Using your insurable interest.
Yeah.
Opening policies for other people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's many levers you can pull here. And also to that point around to do the jump every 3 years, that's not a requirement. It's more of an option, meaning it could be every 5. It could be every 9. It just kind of depends on what you've contributed, how your policy's structured, what's the goal. And based off, how your policy is manufactured, because if you are building in a lump sum, you're actually building in a jump. And so therefore, you don't have to qualify or go through this process every 3 years. It might actually be every 7 or something like that. And let's say you hit year 7 and you cannot qualify for more room. That just means you can't qualify for more room. That doesn't mean that the room that is currently there isn't still available.
Yeah.
So we're going to fill that room with whatever is accessible. So again, using round numbers, if you only have space for 54 grand and 18,000 of it is yours, the remaining 36 is leverage, then we'll fill that space of 36,000 every year for the rest of your life, which means you could either reduce what it is you're contributing because the leverage is obviously larger later on. So we could fully fund this policy with all leverage if we wanted to. And you can use your premium to open up a policy on a grandchild or a great grandchild, or again, use your insurable interest to have more policies if you want to. There are many levers that can be pulled in this situation.
Yeah, and the streams that we did on reverse velocity banking talks about how to leverage this, not just the concept of velocity banking and how you're using the concept of velocity, right, within where you put your cash flow, how you use your leverage. Same thing. This would be the exact same conversation in how to supercharge what it is that you currently are working with.
Absolutely.
Okay, Nurse HQ, welcome, by the way. Can't property stay in a perpetual trust and the kids, the trustees, can just manage the assets, the home, back when we were talking about unrealized gains?
There are so many different types of trust because, yes, the short answer to your question is yes. But there are even, I'll call it, more efficient ways and different trust, meaning a charitable remainder trust might actually work out even better in a situation like this. And I won't get into what a CRT is, but the moral of the story is there are many options outside of just the ones or the two that we might be aware of as it relates to how a trust might work in this process as well. Many levers.
Yeah. Many ways to 10. And that's where this week we'll be going to have more conversations around a group of folks who have their love for a particular strategy and how self-directed accounts become a part of that, whether if it's on a basic level or a more advanced level. That's really exciting to see how even one product can serve so many different groups of people and be so flexible. What's wild to me is that there's not a lot of people talking about them. I think we've seen some now that TikTok exists, now that Reels exist, right? We see some people who got creative and now they're talking about them because it's helping people, because it sounds new and it sounds exciting and it sounds like, wow, you could do this thing now. You could have always been doing this thing. So why are we only talking about it now? Now it's getting credit from people, but before I don't think they understood how to use it. I think even when we were first jumping in, the initial idea around a self-directed account was partnering people, almost like you're playing like a matchmaker, investors and like silent or private investors with real estate developers, right? And they wanted to do all the work. They didn't have the money. They had the money. They didn't want to do any of the work.
Right.
And that's where we were like, we identify with that group. we walked a couple properties with our friend who's like heavy into this, and we were like,
not for me.
Not our thing. Yeah.
Not for me.
We're not with it. Okay. Well, I don't know. I might be
about ready to get out of here.
Yeah, but I just want to make sure we got all the questions, and I hadn't been going in here.
Yeah, that's the other part. Because we're dealing with a new system, if we have missed any of your questions, we will absolutely try to get to them here. But come back next Sunday. Bring those same questions here.
Thank you so much for the feedback on our new space, too. And I don't know, is it better now to be able to see us interact together and be in the same space? I like this better. I do. Yeah. Personally. I don't have my chapstick here, and I'm sitting here realizing, like, I wish.
And I think we're just getting started. Because I think once I understand what my range of motion actually is, because I'm so afraid that I'm going to push her out of this chair or something like that. So I think once I get more comfortable with understanding what my range of motion is, I think it's game on.
Well, welcome, Frank. Frank's got a question. Should I save this?
Save what?
The stream. Yes. Subscribe.
Yeah.
We want you to get in here, Frank. You got to get in here. Yeah. This is a good one. Mistakes to avoid, but there's so many others. Gosh, we have hundreds now. We were going live 2 times a week. Our plan is to get to 3 times a week and have different topics so that you know what, based off of what you're interested in, you know what day to tune into. What do you guys think of that? That was just an idea we came up with, but you know, if it's not a vibe for y'all, we won't do it. But we do plan on getting back to more streams per week. But we do have, Frank, welcome to the community. Hope you're feeling like everyone's welcoming you into the community, or anybody new. If you haven't yet, jump in here. Get in here. Should you save this? Yes. Helps us. Share it with somebody. But you should also go through and watch some other ones, because some of those really break down the fine details of these strategies, different strategies, so that you'll learn. When we say there are many ways to 10, you can find a lot of those ways right here on this channel. It's kind of exciting.
Very true.
Yep. Okay, so I think, yes, like the new studio setup better. Thank you.
Which button is it?
Which one?
Clapping.
The clapping is this one. And we're learning together. All right. So the things that we couldn't do this time was give away a boat. We couldn't figure out how to do that with this new platform, but it's coming. Normally we do the giveaways, but we really appreciate even just being able to like test all this stuff out, get into our new space. We knew that we weren't like 1,000% ready or confident, but we jumped in here anyway because it's about time, and it doesn't matter. We're all fam here, and the point of what we're talking about is the point of being live and getting on here anyway. So all this stuff is just not that important.
Right.
So we really appreciate you guys hanging in there with us with some of the tech issues that we did have, and we just appreciate that you're spending your time here with us. We know that time is the most valuable asset that we have. Oh, I didn't load the outro. Dang it. It's just not going to be one.
It's okay.
We know that time is the most valuable asset that we all of us have, and we're so grateful that you're spending it here with us. So on that note, we don't have an ending.
We can still say.
Do you want to sing the song?
No. You do not want me singing anything. We had asked the kids, or you had asked the kids, if you had a gun to your head and you had to do one song karaoke, what song would you do?
I said if your life depended on it, somebody. I'm the shooter, and I'm saying you have to pick a karaoke song. What is it gonna be?
And I have a feeling we're all gonna die. But I did say, I think it was Gin and Juice, Snoop and Dre.
No, I said they don't have that song.
Right, and it was like, no, it's something that you have to sing. And I was like, well, if that's the case, then I'm probably going a Prince route, or Tears for Fears route. I'm a 80s big hair rock dude. So,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, I would love to know what everyone else's pick would be if you had to pick a song and you had to do karaoke. And what would it be? What's your strongest suit? What's the vibe that you could you have to give it. You have to bring 1,000% when you do it too. It's not like, oh, I technically know the words. It's like, this is a song. I do pretty well in the car. I'm living it up in the shower. So if I was going to do anything, give it my all, this is what it's going to be. That's an interesting thing to add here at the end, though. Yeah. Those are the kinds of conversations we have off stream.
Because people don't realize,
valuable.
like, we're married all the time. So this is what it looks like.
Yeah, it does.
This is exactly what it looks like. So
Yeah, and I did tell him they don't have that song. Every time you pick one, I'm like, nope, they don't have that. You're going to have to pick something that's like a karaoke hit. Like the whole crowd could sing along. Everybody loves it. Don't Stop Believin', Journey type of White Wedding. You said you did White Wedding one time.
I did White Wedding, yeah.
We're trying to see Karaoke Donnell one time. Okay, your time. You're spending it here with us, and we value that. We are going to continue valuing your time, and we're going to let y'all get out of here. So thank you so much for spending your time with us. We like to end with, if you didn't come from a wealthy family.
You can make sure a wealthy family comes from you.
So stay tuned.
Stay protected.
Stay focused.
Stay connected.
I'm Angelique.
And I'm Donnell.
And our goal is to help you
get self-directed.
And to do that, you can visit us at selfdirected.info and come back to this stream next Sunday, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's where we'll be. Come hang out with us. Come learn something new. We'll see you next time, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in.